Hello, mellow yellow fellows. Tisisrealnow, and I love Balatro. I'm gonna spare you the details. You probably already heard of the game, whether it's near launch or after the Game Awards or a secret third reason I can't think of. It's an extremely fun poker roguelike. It can't be explained any simpler than that. If you are around the Balatro space, you may have heard about the upcoming update for Balatro that's gonna come out in 2025, which is later this year. Unless they delay it or just forget about it, which is plausible. And surprisingly, we know very little about it. Not many people talk about the announcement from what I've seen, which is nuts because this is basically the first update after launch for the biggest game of 2024 for a while. There have been a few things that have been told to us about the update, but I'm mostly gonna ignore that and generally talk about what I would like to see in the new update. Now, while this update has been hyped up to be a major gameplay update, or at least a big one, I'm not sure about the scale the update is aiming for. From what I've seen, the update has like 3 confirmed things to be added, which isn't a lot. For all we know, every Joker could just get balance changes that changes the game forever, or it could really just be 2 new Jokers and nothing else. I'll just spew out everything I would like to see for the update regardless of the scale, as it has been slightly over a year since it has been announced, so it has to have something picked up. And for what it's worth, I don't think the next update will be the last update for Balatro. If we have anything to look at from the modding scene, Balatro seems like one of those games that has endless potential for content updates, or at least if you aren't afraid to change a few fundamentals of the game. So, as a person who has like around 700 hours of the game, completionist plus plus, one NAND Infant NAND 39, a shit ton of Balatro videos watched, and like maybe half a functional brain, here's what I would like to see added to the game in this or some other future updates. Also, quick acknowledgement to this guy who managed to upload a video with my idea before I could, and this video for being my biggest source of news about the update. Now I feel like anyone could expect a roguelike game to get new consumables or items to be added if it gets updated, so Balatro shouldn't be any different. We already know new jokers are definitely going to be added, but I want to focus on what type of jokers should be added, how many as well. Seeing as the joker section in the collection menu shows 15 per page, and 15 is a relatively big enough number that the new jokers feel substantial but also not overwhelming, I'd hope we get at least 15 jokers, or 10 if you don't care about the pages. Adding 2 little jokers to the game at once will just make the update feel small no matter what, unless they are like end of the world absolutely earth-shattering jokers. And add too much and you risk changing the game too much, especially if the new jokers aren't as good or simple as the base ones. But 15 seems like the right amount, and I can't imagine adding like 30 or 45 all at once without at least some sort of teaser for the jokers by now. Now let's talk about the types of jokers I want to see. There are mainly 2 distinct types of Balatro playstyles that I have observed, which are actually quite different. There are high stake players who just want to play harder stakes or just try to win a run and see how cracked of a setup they can get by anti-8 and maybe a few rounds to endless. And then we have high score players who try to get far into endless or just get as big as of a number as they can using different setups. I personally jive with high score runs more. There's just something satisfying about slowly getting absurd scores over the course of an hour or more. There isn't anything wrong with just getting to anti-8 by the way, especially at gold stake. That shit still gives me nightmares sometimes. The reason I'm bringing these up is because certain jokers tend to be great in one run and then completely useless in the other. Some jokers are extremely useful to get through anti-8, but may not give you big numbers, and some jokers are basically necessary to get comically large digits, but take too long to set up or just aren't viable to survive consistently. Now obviously not all jokers have that harsh of a fallback based on the playstyles, but if new jokers are gonna be added, people definitely are gonna look forward to the jokers that help their playstyle, so I'd say we should have jokers that lean into that. Now as I like high score runs more, I wanna talk about what the new jokers could add to these runs. I'm not gonna suggest specific custom jokers, but like general ideas to be followed. I really wanna see a joker that allows you to get nan from played cards and not cards held in hand. Of course, with Perkeo and maybe Turtlebait, you can potentially nan with a lot of jokers, but doing it that way is a lot more cumbersome than just nanning with Baron and Mime. I haven't actually done any Idol or Triple A runs. Closest thing to that I've done is Bloodstone and Ancient Joker. So I'm not sure what the issue is to fix with those runs to achieve landing. But I think the main issue is that you can't have enough triggers on 5 cards to score more than cards held in hand can, because there's a way to get a lot more hands than just being limited to 5 cards. So maybe a joker that gives more score on played cards, or like a really cracked version of Hanging Chad that just re-triggers every play card like 3 times could help, but it really can be anything. I think a really cool concept I have is if there's a joker that makes it so cards held in hand act like played cards. So things like business card and minus man affects your cards held in hand. This will allow jokers like Idol and Triple A have way more cards to work with, and it could help with the issue of only having 5 cards to play. Not sure if it relies on hand size too much, but I think it works well. It could also potentially help Baron Mind Manuals be easier if you just have a played card joker tagging along, so you need less blueprints or brainstorms to worry about. Maybe making it a required joker could make it hard, as you're sacrificing a joker slot for an effect, which might be too much, but I think it's fair enough. Thinking about it more, it's probably way too strong without some sort of drawback, but it's still something worth looking into. If you know more than me about Balatro, which you probably do, please tell me how awesome I am at Balatro ideas, or write an essay about how I should never touch another playing card ever again. Another type of joker I would like to see is another cracked econ joker. Now what do I mean by cracked econ? Jokers like golden ticket, million rebate, and gift card that have potential to give a shit ton of money, but maybe with a bit of setup. I feel like econ jokers are very few and far in between, or at least it feels like that in game, and none of them give the same amount of money or in a straightforward way. Now, after playing a shit ton of Balatro, I realized money, joker slots, and hand size are the most important resources in the game, so it would be cool if there were new jokers that make it easier to get money to get the ball rolling, or give gargantuan amounts of money for a bit of setup. Speaking of hand size, it would be so cool to have a joker that gives more hand size, as hand size is directly linked to so many mechanics, but the one I'm mainly looking at is ectoplasm. Seeing as there are only so many ways to add new jokers, negative additions and ectoplasms are so valuable, and Nectar having a cool hand size cost makes some runs feel frustrating. So it would be awesome to have something like an upgraded version of Troubadour that gives way more hand size, or actually any joker that gives more hands for this cards really. It would also be neat to have jokers that give more joker slots, or jokers that clone jokers like Invisible and Showman do, and jokers that re-trigger jokers at cards like Blueprint and Brainstorm. Maybe that's too much to ask, but it will help really spice up the game. Having an abundance of these strong jokers is something to look out for though, as it will make runs way easier or just make those jokers not feel as powerful anymore. But slowly dripping them into the game or having them have big drawbacks will make more runs feel better while also enabling for more fun strats. Now besides from jokers, I'd argue the thing that really elevates the game to be excellent are the cards. No, not just the playing cards, but the consumable cards. Planner cards, tarot cards, and spectral cards really change how the game feels, and they're extremely pivotal in many Balatro runs, so I'd like to see more of them. Now, realistically speaking, consumables are tied to some sort of game mechanic, so asking for new consumables is asking for new game mechanics. But I still want to talk about which consumables exactly we want to see. Planner cards are tied to poker hands, so unless we invent new poker hands like straight pairs or color houses or something, I don't expect to see more of them. Unless planner cards get some sort of new mechanic, I think we're going to stick to what we have. Plus the solar system we have right now is kind of arrived. I've seen people ask for new tarot cards, and while that does sound sick in theory, I'm not sure how feasible that is too. I don't know much about the major arcana or anything tarot related, but from what I do know, there are 22 tarot cards in the standard tarot deck, so adding new tarot cards just out of nowhere feels off. Maybe there are another set of famous cards that could be used I'm not aware of, but I'd say stick to what we have, and have any other tarot card idea be added to a new type of consumable. Spectral cards are funky, as they're essentially spicy tarot cards with powerful effects, usually with a downside. Now noticeably, there are a lot less spectral cards than there are other consumables, and even in the packs we only get to see a few of them, so I wonder if we can actually see any new spectral cards being added. However, spectros are probably the easiest to make more of, as it isn't adhered to some sort of other rule like the other packs are. It would also be awesome to see a new type of consumable card, maybe linked to a new gameplay mechanic, or just a different flavor of charts. where they do one upside and one downside or something like that. But it would be cool to see a new consumable card in some way, shape, or form, if not for anything, just to see the new cool concepts in art. Vouchers and tags are also parts of the game that can hugely impact how your run goes. However, it feels like we never get to see much of them, as a lot of them end up being useless or slightly better than nothing, and the ones that are good are hard to find or just are being outshined by literally anything else. For vouchers, they're a lot better than tags, as most of them do actually help with the run, small or big. But there's just a lot of vouchers and not many ways to get more. So it would be cool to have a joker that allows you to get more vouchers, or maybe a voucher that adds more voucher slots to the shop, like Overstock. It would also be awesome to see more vouchers that do game-breaking things like Observatory or Overstock. I don't know how that can happen without again introducing new game mechanics, but there has to be an angle to be observed somewhere, so I want to see it. Skip tags aren't that interesting compared to everything else, but they're one of the few things that you can get for completely free in the game, and there are a lot of interesting things they do that just end up not being useful 9 times out of 10. I don't really know how to make skip tags more useful. Maybe skip tags can also have rarities like jokers, and certain skip tags have really powerful effects like another joker slot or guaranteed legendary. So you really have to decide if that effect is worth it and if your build can survive skipping forward and blind for that. And again, like vouchers, you only see so many per run, and probably even less than vouchers since you can't get more skip tags except for double tags. But you have opportunities to go through a lot of antis, so it kinda evens out. I just really wanna like skipping because it's an underrated part of the game, but it is underrated because you basically never use them. And also, yeah, new players often skip a lot, thinking the uncommon joker is gonna massively affect their run. It almost never does. Stop skipping. So they're not completely useless, but they should have something more complex than just getting a shit ton of double tags to get a billion negatives or something. These kinda go hand in hand with new consumables, but I separated them so it would be easier to talk about them. Firstly, let's talk about enhancements. Now we have a pretty good collection of enhancements in the game right now, but they definitely can be more interesting concepts to explore. Something like an enhancement that's a hybrid of chips and mud could be useful, though I'm not sure if it'll be redundant since bonus or mud cards may just give more. It would also be cool if there were more enhancements based on probabilities like lacking glass. Maybe an enhancement that does nothing but has a 1 in 8 chance to give 4x more, so like an evil glass card, or a chance to give big chips or big modes to be a most power optimized version of lucky cards. There really can be anything added as an enhancement, but nothing too outlandish, as that's what the other modifiers, as I like to call them, are for. Seals are the second modifier and are arguably the strongest ones. Red seals retriggering any effect makes them an extremely useful utility. Blues help skyrocket planet levels. Purples are really great for deck fixing and just char generation at any point of the game. And gold seals are gold seals. Again, I don't really know any good seal ideas, but ones for spectral production are an obvious pick. And maybe some other interesting things like giving an equivalent amount of mud for the chips the card would have scored, or drawing the card back to the hand after playing them would be interesting to see. Additions are up next and they're probably the most flashy ones out of all the modifiers, mostly because they apply both to the cards and jokers. Now of course, additions are a very different type of modifier as they can't be replaced once applied, and they all have very simple but also powerful effects. It would be cool to see an addition give chips and malt, maybe an addition that gives a certain amount of money at the end of the round, or something crazy like a re-triggering the card it's on. Additions can be anything, but I feel like the most important part is how it looks. Of course, its functionality is great, but I really want to see cards with different additions and have them look cool without it just being polychrome and negative. Also, could playing cards get negative additions? They feel pretty powerful if added, but if the negative addition works like it does with jokers, where negative additions can be duplicated, it could make them balanced. But having to get a random negative card and get it upgraded without being able to duplicate them easily might just make them a redundant addition. So I want to see how they'll be tackled. Odds are they'll just be never added, and that's probably fine. And I want to have some sort of new modifier that can be added on top of these as well. Maybe something like card sleeves that are exclusive to Jokers that change how they interact with certain things, like having increased sell value or have increased probability if applicable. It would also be awesome if additions and seals could also be added to Jokers somehow. But I don't know what I'd do if my blueprint gets a purple seal or a lucky enhancement. Maybe it's a lot simpler than I think, but it might be adding too much to the Jokers. So maybe just at least the seals. I also want to see new decks added, since decks change how the run usually goes by a large amount. Not necessarily sure about what the new decks exactly should be, but more decks that are based on randomness, like erratic deck, or change some part of the run in a large way, like Ghost and Plasma deck, are definitely some things I want to see. I'd also love to have a way to combine decks or have some sort of way to create custom decks with different effects. So like you can have Plasma and Ghost deck and maybe even Black deck all in the same place. Might be too broken, but if you treat it as a custom thing separate from the normal decks, like seeded runs, it could probably fly well. Speaking of custom decks, this is what challenges are for. Challenges are really cool runs that have unique mechanics, but like once you play them all, it's usually not interesting to play them again unless you're really bored. More challenges can be added and should be, but that's way too simple. A lot of people want to have stakes or seeded runs added to them, but in addition to that, I think a challenge editor like the one in BT6 can really help with the longevity of the game. Make it so that you can customize a few sets of rules for the runs, maybe take them from existing challenges, and then have a system so you can save a custom challenge as a seed or code you can share without relying on the server to host it, and bam, you have infinite content. This can basically be the custom deck builder as well. So if you want to have that added, having an in-game challenge browser will go a long way to help people find and play cool challenges instead of having to dive into subreddits or Discord channels. Again, taking notes from BTD6 or even Geometry Dash, a community-based browser will really help people feel connected, and it's just fun browsing them if you don't know what to play. Maybe this idea is a bit out of scope for the current update or the simplicity of Balatro, but it would just be a cool thing if added in some way, shape, or form. Another difficulty modifier that the game offers are stakes, and while most stakes can be interesting, the 8 stakes we currently have are already plenty, at least in terms of difficulty, and adding more stakes just makes the completionist grind way too tough, so I'd say they should stay as is. Now for my last, but definitely not maybe least idea, is some sort of new mechanic. Now what exactly do I mean by new mechanic? I don't know actually. Just something new to the game that changes how runs feel. Maybe it's a new number to keep track of like with money, or another element that changes how you play hands like hands or discards or hand size, or some sort of things cards can have or can do, like giving tips or triggering certain effects. I just want to have something new. I know that's extremely vague, but I feel like it's the best explanation I can give without trying to tack on things that can make people very upset. We have seen with mods how so many things can be added to the game while still maintaining the essence of Balatro to an extent. And while Balatro is already a very engaging and complex game as is, I feel like there's some element that hasn't been tapped onto completely, or just some way to make the game more fun, but it's very hard to describe. Again, we don't know how big the scope of the update truly is, so maybe there is something new like this being added, like a secondary currency like gems you can use to purchase things, or some other card like jokers you can hold on to for certain effects. Just something cool to really change how the game feels. It will be cool to have big changes added to the game like that, as it will make the game and the players evolve as time goes on. Since it is a single player game, if we feel like we missed the quote unquote simpler game once big mechanics are added, we can just regress updates on Steam. You can probably get older versions on mobile too, but everyone else, you're just out of luck, I guess. It can also help shake things up more than other editions, as you actively have to learn these new things and then think about how they can impact the game. Really makes it more fun to keep up with the game. Maybe I'm just being delusional and everything we have in the game is already enough and we don't need more mechanics, but it wouldn't hurt to try. Some other things I want to see more of but don't really have a neat way of tying them to other things, or if I just forgot to mention them before, are maybe having more legendaries or just more ways to get them. Legendaries are so neat and are fundamentally more powerful than a lot of other jokers. but they're so rare that you usually never get to play with them, or at least play with them exactly how you wanted to, the way you usually can with regular jokers. Just to put things into perspective, getting a rare joker from the shop or any pack is a 5% chance of 1 in 20. The soul card is a 1 in 333. Now the first thought would be having something similar to the brainstorm mod added to the game, where we can search for specific seeds with jokers or legendaries off the bat, so we can have fun with those ones if we want to, but that's just solving one part of the puzzle. Legendaries are still super rare to get in normal circumstances, so it'd be sick if there are new jokers or other things that can guarantee you a random legendary. Of course, more legendaries are the next step, so you don't just get the same 5 ones each time. For the legendaries, I want them to be more game breaking. Out of all the legendaries, Perkeo is undeniably the most broken one because it can just do so much. And while I'm not sure if there can ever be anything better than Perkeo or something equivalent, but I want to see it happen. Another thing I want to see are more deck customizing and maybe even a custom deck maker like the face cards. Changing the face cards is cool, but changing the entire look of the playing cards could be even cooler. So it would be nice to have a way to just upload files to replay the card textures like in Minecraft, but I can see why it's probably not in the base game. It's already totally possible, I just want it to be more approachable. Achievements are things that most people probably don't care about, but I really like them. Balatro does have a bunch of achievements, some tied to Joker unlocks and some just there for fun, but I always found it odd that achievements aren't viewable in game, just in whatever platform Balatro is in. More unique achievements and an in-game achievement browser or just some way to see all of them could be cool. When a run ends, we get a screen that shows a bunch of handy info that makes it easy to screenshot, but I'd argue it's not enough info. You can see what jokers you have, what vouchers you have, what your deck is, and a lot more things like that. So it would be cool if you just had a button that shows more cool details, so you don't have to take a billion screenshots after you press endless and sometimes forget which ones to take. Speaking of statistics, I want to see more statistics in the stats page. What my most played card is, what my most played enhancement is, anything weird and wacky goes. Nothing really useful can come out of it, but it's just fun to see sometimes. It would also be nice to have some sort of way to record runs, because it can be hard to show cool plays or cracked runs without just having OBS on at all times. But it can get very stupid fast, so unless there's a way to just replay the game natively, on the top of my head, I can think of something like Yomi instead of screen recording. I don't see it being available anytime soon, and that's probably okay. Now, those are a lot of asks, and I don't expect any of them to be completely added to the game, nor for everyone to agree with my thoughts, but it's just fun to speculate on things like this. For all we know, the new update will just add the unused joker in the files and nothing else, but either way, I'm looking forward to it. I really hope the update drops soon though, but seeing how long we've gotten without any teaser, it can only mean it's gonna drop any moment now, or not anytime near now. I'm speculating somewhere around October to November. It's a good time near the holidays, I presume. It is just around the end of the year while still having enough time to still call it 2025. Now, even if the update doesn't drop this year, I'll still probably play Balatro. The game definitely is content complete to a degree, and it's already endlessly replayable as it is now. But despite all that, I'll patiently wait for the Balatro update. Not because the game desperately needs something fixed, but because I want to see this thing evolve. And I'll also properly appreciate it now since I think I'm already in the game now. With that being said, please leave a comment and say your thoughts about the update. And remember that this is real now.
Does anybody want to watch me gamble?